Yeah, when did we start? Yeah.
10 minutes ago.
Yeah, 10 minutes ago. Typical for the NerdBrand Podcast. Welcome to it, everybody. I'm your host, Jason Davis. This is our creative director, Mitch Gregory, and our CXO, Jonathan Payne. And today is April Fool's. Fool you or fool me. And I did think of George W. when I titled that because he had a really hard time explaining that phrase. You know, fool me once. You just fool me, fool clown potato. You know, it's just like you didn't give it up, George.
He made it, sort of.
He made it special. But anyways, April Fools, everybody. Listen, this week on the NerdBrand Podcast episodes, we talk about the discovery process in any type of project that is a business endeavor that endeavors on. So whether if it's a website, logo, brand strategy, or a marketing campaign, the process of discovery takes time. It takes intentional time and effort to sit and discuss what are we going to do, because anybody who's a creative, graphic design, web design, copywriting, whatever you do in that arena, the first thing I've always heard them say is, what am I doing? And, you know, if the crickets follow after that, then nobody bothered to spend time to do discovery.
Right.
So some of the discovery questions for prospects or new clients, and yes, this is very tongue-in-cheek. Why are nickels bigger than dimes? Why does Hawaii have an interstate highway? Why doesn't Tarzan have a beard? And why do the Flintstones celebrate Christmas?
Why not?
I don't know, man. You just gotta have introspect. You gotta have it's. My point is, I'm like, you gotta think deeply about these things and be like, wait a minute.
It probably has something to do with the complexity of multiple time streams and things of that nature, but that's for another podcast.
Yeah. I think we just went into the nerd half of the nerd brand. Well, in the multiverse.
There you go. The Hanna-Barbera multiverse. That's an idea. Somebody needs to latch onto that.
Where's Fred?
Yeah. Fred Flintstone and George Jetson show up. Didn't they try that, though?
There was a crossover.
There was, yeah.
Yes, there was. I don't remember exactly how it worked, but there was a crossover.
John's shaking his head. He's like, can we get back to like...
Oh, it shouldn't have happened. They were fine separate.
Anyways, ask yourself this question. Do you have a process to onboard clients, and what are some of the things you can do? So I'm going to yield to the gentleman at the end of the row here. No, not that empty chair.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's Steve.
The chair or
you? Steve the chair.
So what are some of the processes that you can use to onboard clients, John?
just yell at them. Just yell at them. Here's what you do.
How far away should you stand?
3 feet.
I thought it was 6.
Precisely 3.
Oh, it was 3?
I don't follow those guidelines. Yes, I do. I'm just kidding. I mean, I think it's going to differ depending on the business and kind of what your end goal is. But, you know, getting them into some automated email flows is a good idea. Getting them introduced to, I think, just a letter from the CEO, an email from the CEO could be a good tactic if you have a new client who's not met the leadership at the company. Just a welcome to the, not a welcome to the family, because that's kind of weird, but
yeah,
welcome to the company. And
if I send that kind of email, I know right away John's going to be like, WTF?
We're not a family. I don't really subscribe to that one.
I get the principles behind it, but yeah, it's like we're a family that has a reunion once a week.
Yeah, kind of. I think the best thing you can do is very clearly let them know what the next step is, obviously, and what they're going to expect. And if you set those expectations well for you and the client, and you meet them or exceed them, you've done your job. I mean, that is the nature of our business. So,
What are some things you've seen that places have done that? Because Mitch, you've been everywhere as the elder statesman at the group.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen a lot of
elder statesman.
Yeah,
I'll get to that.
we
That's
should
a Christmas gift.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to sound very basic, but having people sit in a room together and actually spend some time face to face, especially, I mean, even now in this day and age, now everything is a great first step, because you want to. It's not enough to have electronic communications between you and phone calls and things like that. You need to actually spend time in the room getting to know those people in an environment where you share the space. And that's why even for us, I'm a big believer in having team meetings where everybody is together and actually physically together. Even during COVID, you said, during Zoom meetings, you thought it was important that you have faces to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Turn the camera on.
Right. So because I think you get a deeper feel for how to relate to people if you share physical space and see reactions rather than just say, well, it looked like they smiled when I made that suggestion.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable to have a meeting. And we've had, John, you and I have had quite a few on Zoom where they just didn't turn the camera on.
I'm used to it at this point.
Yeah, but it's so difficult for me to have a conversation. I kind of just want to leave the meeting and say, like, let me know when you do your hair and makeup or whatever it is you need to do to clean up to be on here. But because it's sort of just a courtesy, in my opinion, to be face-to-face. It feels like you're not invested or involved or even just frankly care at that point. And in professional services, I think it's just a professional courtesy to be there, just like it is to not, like, it's weird when you go on a trip and you arrive at the airport. And I'll be honest with you, I've not been on a plane. My first time and last time on a plane was back in 2019, I think. And I was actually like, I've always heard that people show up in pajamas, but I've never seen it. It's kind of like, you hear about the people at Walmart, but you'd never have seen it. And then if you actually try to go to Walmart around 2 a.m. and then you're like, oh my God, they exist.
It does exist.
Yes. And so I had that moment. And so, I feel like that, imagine doing that, sitting in a boardroom discussing your project wearing pajamas.
I think it'd be fun. I think it should be done every now and then, just to change up the vibes.
There's dress down day, and then there's dress really down day.
Yeah. And then there's just roll out of bed and start doing things day, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, I think making that step to be in front of people, to make yourself presentable. I mean, not necessarily wearing a tie or suit and tie or anything like that.
Right. No, I'm not advocating like business attire all the time.
It speaks to something that's kind of one of our brand principles, and that is intentionality.
Yeah.
Show intent that you're coming in with a purpose. You're showing evidence that you're there to accomplish something, that there's a goal in mind.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to project that to the clients, and I think clients respect that because they want to know that you're there physically, but you're there mentally. You're there you're on a mission and you care.
And believe it or not, that is for those listening or watching, that is a part of our discovery process with the client. Even if before you've onboarded with us, or if you're just in the prospect phase or you're in the customer phase, we will look at that to kind of determine, because branding extends beyond, your website. It extends beyond materials and apparel. It's you. And so one of the things that has come up recently, and, somebody let me know if I'm wrong here, but I think it was GLI that was like saying like business attire is required for some of these events. Please. Basically, they were asking you to wear clothing that's appropriate.
Right.
So that kind of means that even for me, like showing up in jeans, no, wear some slacks, or some khakis. Well,
at least wear a pair of nice jeans and wear a sport coat, wear a button-down shirt.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that. Yeah, Robert's coming in like look at me, I wore buttons.
Because what's interesting about that ask is that people are now they're asking that of you, but at the same time, the definition of what business attire is has gotten kind of a little vague.
Yeah.
Because we've just come out of a generation where people show up at work in t-shirts and jeans.
Yeah. Well, when, we go to if you go to a gala and you go to that event and you notice that, and women are far better at this than us men. They just are. It's just because they're just more aware of it and how it impacts what will happen next. But how they dress, and they're wearing their outfits, and if you show up as the dude wearing like probably what we're wearing right now in the studio doing this, it's just going to look like, did she find him in the alley and bring him in? How did this happen? So there is a certain intentionality, to be aware of if you're going to go to some special event like that, how you're going to dress and coordinate with your team and how you look and go there in that way. There is always the argument of, well, not everybody has that suit that costs, that kind of money.
Not every organization is like that. I think there's something to be said about dress authentically to your company is
Right.
and your in your brand. Because
Authentic to your,
if you have an outdoors brand, it doesn't matter. People come to work or an activewear brand or something. I'm sure people are going to come to work or be in a work environment or an activewear
or like a more industrial kind of brand.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm talking to a roofer, I don't expect them to wear a suit.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
it's all about, read a room.
Yeah.
You know,
really, yes.
read
it
a
is.
room.
Yeah. I mean, Mitch, before John came along, Mitch and I went to an event, and I remember I was wearing nice jeans and, casual shoes, but I had a Batman t-shirt on and a blazer. And I walked in, and I don't know, you were wearing a Marvel shirt or something, or maybe something. But anyways, the person that invited us put their eyes on me and just busted out laughing because they were like, "That's so on brand." And I was like, "Well, yeah."
The very first meeting we went together, you wore a Marvel shirt, I think.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it's like
because that's who we. It's not a costume.
Right.
It's who we are. I mean, our brand says NerdBrand.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, now, again, read the room.
Depends. Yeah.
There are some clients where, they may think it's interesting that we're all nerds, but they care more about what we do than what they care more about the work we perform than the other stuff we're into.
Well,
Yeah.
They're like, that's cool and everything, but
I think we've created that as well. I'm kind of intentional about like the work we do and what we deliver and how we do it is substantially more important than whether or not I have my hair combed. And not that I don't comb my hair for clients, but at the end of the day, that's not what's important.
Yeah.
It helps kind of depending on who the client is. But at the end of the day, we are delivering a particular thing. If the thing does the thing, it shouldn't matter what somebody wore while they did while they created the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree to a point. There's a fine. I mean, there's kind of a fine line.
Yeah.
I mean, and not that none of us would do this, but to show up unshaven with a pair of really ratty, gross clothes on, doesn't set a good standard.
Yeah,
but
should be presentable,
right? And there's a comfort level. I mean, the more comfortable you become with the client, maybe their expectations, maybe they don't expect quite as much presentation.
Yeah.
As you become more comfortable.
I can wear a hat with some of our clients, and I can definitely not wear a hat with some of our clients.
Yeah, I can't wear a hat at all because it makes me look weird. I mean,
you gotta just try it.
Yeah. You ever seen there's sometimes hats just don't work for people. If you look at Harrison Ford, he looks great in a fedora. If he puts on a baseball cap, it's like, nope.
It's all about the shape of the head.
Yeah, it really the
Guess
shape.
He
of the
won't be a guest. There we go.
Sorry, Harry.
Yeah, there went that.
I think that's the big challenge with onboarding and really just any kind of client relations in any service industry is like every client is different. Their personalities are different. They're just people. So that's systemizing your onboarding or your discovery process or whatever it may be. Sounds awesome and lovely, but the reality and the practicality of doing that is much more difficult. Everybody's different. So as you get in the room and you start talking to them, you're going to treat it differently. And you can have these steps in mind. And most of the time you can apply them in some format, but it's never going to be this kind of rotary. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing about when people talk about, well, I want to, develop relationships in business. Well, you really are. And relationships are very difficult to create, maintain, and just they are, period. Otherwise, everybody would like everybody. Twitter wouldn't be what it is if that was the case. But it's one of those things where, like you said, people are different, and you don't really know until the first meeting's not going to determine that. You're not going to really
everybody's
see
on
that.
their best behavior.
Yeah, everybody's on their best behavior. It's like dating. The first 2 months is great. But as soon as routine sets in and you kind of know each other, somebody farted and that happened, and it's like,
either a deal breaker or a giggle moment.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. You can take that away from the podcast.
Yeah. If you're going to onboard,
don't fart in the conference
watch
room.
your
We're not saying
flatulence.
that.
Next NerdBrand podcast, relationship tips.
Number 1.
Get
counseling, evidently.
The interesting thing
Eat
about
popcorn.
the interesting thing about onboarding is, and maybe I'm giving away a little of a trade secret.
Well, then Robert needs to do a moment where he
mark this.
Yeah, mark
the tape. It's the whole our whole goal when we sit down with a client, whether it's in the onboarding process or when we sit down to actually go into a particular project, personally, what I hope to do is to make that become a conversation so that the client will then tell you their needs. Mm-hmm. You want to hear more you want to hear more from them than what you're hearing from yourself. If you're doing all the talking, then something's not working, because the whole idea is to get them to participate and become 75% of the conversation, because we're there to answer their need, but we can't fully understand the need until they disclose and feel comfortable enough to open up to us about, well, we tried this, we're doing this. So part of that onboarding process is developing, I think, that kind of intimate relationship where they feel comfortable disclosing.
Yeah, nobody wants to admit I got stuff that's messed up, but we all do.
Well, and generally, I mean, is that not why they come to us in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's that. And then on our side, we don't want to come back to the table with, here's this thing, but you already did it and tried it, and it didn't go quite well, but we're going to do it again.
But you never told us that, so we didn't know.
Right, exactly. That right there is what we're really actively listening for, so that doesn't happen, which is why I think John and I have sat and, okay, full stop, not going to happen. We're gonna have to reset here, and I've done that on meetings before, because expectations were, I could tell already were out of whack. They were already shopping. There was things going on. It was just like, I could just tell it wasn't going to work. And John and I've gotten pretty good at looking at each other and reading like, and just like, okay. And, you try to do it in a nice way. It's just like, we're just too far apart. It's just really the nicest way to kind of say it. We're just too far apart on philosophy, price, agreement, whatever. And you just, it's fine. They'll eventually go and get what they needed, but not to be snarky, eventually they'll be right back where they started in a few months, because that's about how long it takes to do a thing. And then 6 months later, you look at it and go, did that work? Well, no, that didn't work. But unfortunately, by then, I'm not saying that they're going to remember and you can say, I told you so. No, they're not going to remember. There's very few that actually do.
We're not a fit for everybody. We never will be. And that's okay. They can go to someone who's a better fit. I mean, like you said, it's kind of like dating.
Yeah.
The services and our personalities and our experience throughout our career naturally pushes us in certain directions and certain compatibilities with clients, and it pushes us away from others, where another agency or another service provider or whatever may actually fit better with them. I mean, we've had folks come. We had a women's health clinic come to us, and we entertained it. We had conversations with them, but I know in the back of their mind they're like, well, you guys are
dudes.
There's not a whole lot of women on your team. And leadership, you don't have any. And how much can you realistically empathize and understand our brand?
A women's health clinic, and the strategy is determined solely by everybody who has a prostate. That's just not going to work.
Well, probably. I mean,
it could, but
it could. But
I get the natural chemistry. It's again kind of like dating. The natural chemistries were just kind of not there. It's not that we couldn't do the things.
Right.
We can do the things.
Oh yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, Mitch, you've said that it's like it's really like all the rules and everything is kind of the same.
Yes.
There's really nothing that's specialized for. It's the rules of advertising are pretty much that.
The products and services all differ, but the principles you apply to promote successfully those products or services are all the same. It's just a matter of applying them correctly to that particular product, service, whatever the case it is.
Yeah. And we can rest our hat on that because of all of the different variations of industries we have all been involved in. I mean, we really have. We've been involved in quite a bit. I mean, part of when I was looking at, and I know a lot of people will go and they'll look on LinkedIn and look at the past history and everything. And I've taken off quite a bit of my history, because how much do you need to know about me, where I've been since 1996? Really?
Not all that. You don't want to get pigeonholed into a certain
right.
thing.
Right. Exactly. That's the brand positioning issue where, people just kind of know you for that. And then you don't get really invited to tables to talk about anything else that you can actually solve and do that's much better. Which I think is a detriment to certain unnamed groups, where you have this chair that you get to occupy because somebody else has this other chair. So you can't talk about that, even though you're like, but I got 20 years experience in that, and they just started last week with the laptop,
Right.
Let me pose a question to you guys. I mean, because we're talking about onboarding.
I'm not going to answer.
Okay. No, I don't want to either. I want to know why Flintstones celebrate Christmas.
We're back there.
Alternate realities, I'm telling you. Anyway, talking about onboarding. I mean, there's to me, you guys tell me what you think. It's almost like there's different kinds of, you go through a couple different onboardings with a client. There's the onboarding when you're vetting to make sure that whether or not they're a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound fair? Then there's kind of a next onboarding. It's like, okay, we've determined you're a good fit. Now we need to find out, get into a little bit of the meat of the issue and find out what is it you're about that makes you different.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's kind of another step in that onboarding that is, okay, we've figured out what you are, what you do, what your pluses and minuses are. What are the appropriate tools to bring to bear to solve whatever the problem is that your brand is having? So there's steps in that onboarding.
Right.
It's kind of an ongoing process rather than just not something that happens once and then you're done with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we inadvertently, you and I went through the first 2 steps, invited you to a group, and the prospect sat down and just, and it was good because, your ears listen for things differently than mine. And you were able to say some things that was like, okay. And even though they were already bought into that we're capable of doing it. And they want to work with us, and the commitment is there. It's just an issue of, how do we get them there from a budget standpoint? But that goes to the third step that you just illustrated. What do we bring to bear? Because that's going to determine, the budget. If they don't know the budget, then we have to figure out what that is and then see what that is and kind of do a verbal, not do a full-on, proposal, because it's still not there. And I think the anticipation is with many people is like in the first or second meeting, here's a proposal sign. And it's like, you and I, Mitch, have personally seen that explode. Like, whoa. Oh, exactly. Yeah. And you just don't do that. We kind of do take our time before we get to that.
I haven't dated you enough yet.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
discovering. That's, and I think that's figuring out where those lines are. It's never super black and white. But a lot of what you were saying is post-sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about onboarding after the sell.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Some of that stuff also bleeds into what you typically do, which is needs analysis, discovery. Are they a fit from a personality perspective? You're doing that on the kind of the front side of the sales process.
Kind of the vetting.
Yeah, it's part of it. But it still happens when you and I get involved and the rest of the team.
Because how much, even though I know how many touches need to happen before I bring you all in. When I'm out doing stuff and talking to people, I'm basically the filter. But I'm not going to catch everything because everybody always continuously puts on a face. And that first touch at a networking event, that's just one. An email could be 2. If I see them again twice at an event, that's 2 touches. And my brain is kind of clocking how many and how long. But at the same time, I'm trying to listen and watch and observe things, not just ask questions, to see whether or not is it time to bring Mitch or John or both at the table for the next step. Because sometimes you do leapfrog steps because you get to the point where you're like, well, they already got things figured out for this, and this.
Right.
Well, Mitch isn't there. They're in tactics. Well, it's going to be John. So I go and I get John because John can actually sit and bring things valuable to the conversation. I cannot because I'm on web. And John does this too. John will be like, I need to bring Mitch because Mitch does this branding and advertising conversation. But if the conversation goes directly to web, I get a call.
Yeah. Especially if it's going to get technical.
Yeah.
And that's the difficulty of it's not robotic. The discovery process is not robotic. The onboarding process can never be robotic as much as you want to. And that's what I'm trying to work on right now for us is how can we systemize the onboarding process to some degree?
Yeah.
How can we systemize these touch points after they sign a proposal? But even that is just, it's exceptionally difficult because every client is different.
It's like asking, how much does a website cost? Well, tell me how much does a car cost?
Right.
It's that. It's a very customized process because it's like, and that's why reason I think a lot of employers have problems today with hiring is, well, number one, they put out a job and they get like 40 applications from people that are not even from the city or even a fit for the job. That just happens. It happened to us, and I've heard very many other companies who have posted jobs for everything from marketing to sales to whatever. That happened to them. But the job that they're posting because of certain issues, like if I say marketing coordinator, there's all these things that come into mind that's the job. And you and I looked at the bullet points and we're like, about half of that ain't going to happen with NerdBrand and what we do because that's not, we just don't. It's not that we don't or cannot service that. It's that over 20 years, stuff's changed. why is that still listed as a responsibility for that job?
Right.
Yeah.
So there's things like that. So it's like customized employment, but for the client that we have onboarded or that has come in. And that's always required. And you're not going to get a nailed down process on that because it's customized. That's the word. It's in the name. It's kind of like saying template versus custom. If you want a template, everybody else has got it. If you want custom, well, it's going to cost more because it's to you.
Right.
So anyways, worst thing you can do is send a referral that's a dead end as well. And I put that in the notes. And I want to touch on this really quick because qualified referrals, these come out of the clients that you've onboarded because you've established this relationship.
Right. Yeah.
And you cannot look at that relationship as the end point of the sale. If you do, you've missed the whole entire point of why you're in business as a service provider or your product exists, because whoever it is that has bought it has friends. They have a network, and it is not, and I'm not saying that the qualified referral is for you to sell to them and then go sell to their friends, but it is to find out how you can help them and their friend with maybe someone else that is completely not in that list, that's in your network but not theirs. And it starts to foster qualified referrals because everybody starts talking about you and understanding what you do more. And now you're not getting these referrals where you're like, I don't do that.
Right.
You know, I just, and you just, all your time is spent on filtering.
That's why most new business comes from existing clients.
Yes.
Rather than going out and fishing for new clients, most new business comes from your existing clients, either by them discovering that there's a problem that they need fixing that they didn't realize you could fix. Okay. Or you've done such a good job helping them. They want to help you by, it makes them look good by referring you to a colleague that has a problem.
Yeah. And I had that, that's happening now. I had somebody reach out and say, there's a full branding, web, everything project. I want you guys to help them. I'm going to send them your way. That's now happening. And I'm like, okay. It's not, hey, you got a website's broke, can't fix it. That is not the things that's happening. You know, that's what you're talking about. They understand now that because of the network that's built that, oh no, they're not web guys. They're not ad guys.
Yeah, the best thing we can do is help somebody with their problems because they're going to be happy and they're going to be becoming, the brand advocate. They become a brand advocate for you, and they're going to pass your name along.
Yeah, your position. That's when we talk about brand positioning, how you sit in the mind of your customer. The positioning starts to really solidify, and ours is solidified after 2.5 years. I will not join a group where there's a seat, like I said before, and that seat is digital marketing. And I've been very open and transparent about that because we're a branding agency. If I sit in that seat, everybody in that group, all their friends who are not members of that group, all their people on LinkedIn they're connected to, the word travels. Well, they're in the digital marketing seat in my group. They're a digital marketing company. No.
Even the way we've played that, we still get that, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well, because it's in the umbrella. I mean, advertising is a big umbrella. Branding is, like, in my opinion, the next piece that's in there as far as for industry standards, because there are codes. As John, a few weeks ago, you looked up and you're like, what is this NIC? Does this CIABCD XYZ code? And I'm like, well, that's the government thing. It means advertising.
Right.
That exists.
Oh, it does. It does. For every industry.
Yeah, and that's why there's probably not a lot. I mean, if you're an employer, you've probably discovered that and know that because you're managing payroll or whatever. You're like, yeah, I know what that code is. But a lot of people out there that have the needs, like you're talking about, Mitch, is that they don't know that. They just hear advertising, and whatever is the current trend is what pops into their mind. Even like SEO.
Right.
I mean, it happened. He and I were at an event and we were talking, and they want somebody else who's in IT. They're in IT. IT is not a marketing person, and they ended up getting asked about, do you do SEO?
because they in some way touch a computer. Well, you know about SEO.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like saying, I drive a car. I know how to engineer overpasses.
We can give it a try.
Anyways, if you're having issues with any of these things, or if any of the stuff that we've talked about is sort of like triggers you to kind of think about your brand, your business, where it's at, where it's positioned on web, or if you're kind of struggling with this all onboarding process, you probably, believe it or not, branding and the guide and the tone and the things that we do your brand's promise, its attributes. We've talked about these a lot that go into the brand standards. Without all of these things, and again, we've seen brand standards. I've seen them. They're 84 plus pages.
I mean, I've seen, go to a major corporation, it'll be a binder that's like hundreds of pages.
Yeah, with the playbook for PR crisis. Like, we do all of that, and it's not something that you get that just happens day one. It's a document that grows. But the point is, it allows everybody on your staff that if you're onboarding staff, you should have a copy of that with your employee handbook with that, so that they understand these things, so that if something comes up, because not every conversation I'm in the room for, or you all are in the room for, but if somebody else is, then they go, oh, well, yeah, I know that. We don't use that word. We don't say that. That's not kind of the thing we do. They understand.
It's not just service providers either. It's a restaurant, and you ask at the front, have you been here before? Mm-hmm. If they say no, hopefully you treat them a little differently than somebody who's been there and is a regular. Or the same with it's a service provider, but a dentist's office or a doctor's office, like your front desk person should have some kind of playbook in mind beyond being just, I'm just going to be a nice person and schedule things. Mm-hmm. Like, they should care about, there should be a brand experience there.
Yes.
And that has to be defined. It's not something they're going to come up with.
Because that might be the first time they're onboarded, is that might be the first touch.
Aside from your doctor or dentist, that's the person you talk to. And when you call to schedule an appointment, to ask a question, or when you go into the office, and it goes for any business that has kind of that secretary, front office person.
No, that first point of contact is extremely important, because it's the first interaction a person has with your brand. So that's going to set the tone for everything that takes place thereafter. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's the same gospel that I've preached about when we go in as an agency and are introduced to a client. It's a cliche. You can't put toothpaste back in the tube. Once it's out, it's out.
Yeah.
So when you cross that threshold, you've already established the terms that people are going to interact with you with from that day forward. So back to the point, the brand guide is great for things like, here's how you use our logo on this and that and this and that. This is the verbiage you use when you talk about it. But for your people that are meeting customers, meeting prospects, meeting the people you do business with, that they're speaking the same language, using the same playbook, like you said, that's consistent throughout the company, and it's reflective in every other aspect of the branding. It's a consistent brand experience from the most minute interaction to the largest interaction.
Yeah, because the most minute could be the memorable.
The most memorable.
Exactly.
Yeah, you never know. Anyways, if you got any questions about that, head over to nerdbrandagency.com/podcast to listen to this episode. You can also find us on YouTube. You can please like and subscribe on that. You just search for NerdBrand Podcast on YouTube and you'll find us. Leave some comments. Appreciate that. Also, find us anywhere on social media at NerdBrand Agency. And we hope that this was an informative show. This was number 101, so this is our first show after our anniversary of, or I guess episode 100. Not really an anniversary, is it?
Now we're on the path to 200.
Now we're on the path to 200, everybody.
Is this our anniversary episode? Technically?
No.
Close.
It's close.
Isn't April 1st?
Well, it's April 1st, yeah. But that'd probably be another episode that maybe we need to talk about, because, Mitch reminded me, like, no, there was a thing that happened after the thing. And I was like, well, what? Anyway.
Are you guys going to answer these questions or what? I've been waiting this whole time to answer these questions.
I really don't know.
There are no answers.
I don't know. Dun. I mean, why nickels are bigger than dimes? I mean, I don't know, because...
Who's on the nickel?
I don't know. It's Abe.
Thomas Jefferson.
Isn't it Abe Lincoln, I thought?
No, that's the penny.
That's a penny.
That's the penny. Well, Robert, don't make it worse, man.
Yeah, I think Jefferson's on the nickel. Wasn't?
Anyways, if you're listening to this and you know who's on what, go check it out. Leave a comment. Let us know. And we'll see you next week. And remember, keep your nerd brand strong. Having a 4-hour conversation like this on the